And Sarah, thanks a lot for joining us on Morning News today. Now, social media is great as a great tool for insight, for exploring, for understanding the world around us, but it could also be a really dangerous platform, especially where children are concerned. Do we communicate just how dangerous it could be to our kids?
I think absolutely. You know, we always say in our company we go around and we speak to school students every single day about the risks of social media, and what we always say is you wouldn't get behind a car without a license. In the same way, you shouldn't have a smartphone or be online without really understanding the risks and the dangers of being online and of social media.
Yeah, and now with, I call them alter egos. So the ability to actually be on social media means that you gain an alter ego. What I will say, I cannot say certain things face to face to you,
Absolutely.
but I've got somehow the guts to say it on social media, which brings rise to cyberbullying, a lot of cyberbullying, which has unfortunately led to increased suicide rates, especially amongst young people, because they felt bullied on social media. How do we stop that? How do we even begin tackling that?
So I think education is the biggest piece. We've got to, we as parents have got to have the conversations, parents and educators have got to have the conversations with our children as early as possible, the minute they are online, about the risks, about speaking up if you ever feel at all uncomfortable about content online, because, you know, the internet has no shallow end. So once you're online, you will in all likelihood be exposed to some inappropriate content, whether it's in the form of cyberbullying, whether it's in the form of explicit pornographic content. There's a strong chance that you will probably at some point come across it, and we need to equip young people with the skills and the confidence to come forward when they're exposed to that.
Though, Sarah? How do you even start having that conversation with an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old, or should even 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds be on social media? That's becoming the big argument really right now. It's looking at the appropriate age for children to actually be on social media, simply because there are predators out there, and a lot of kids get groomed from these various social media platforms.
Absolutely. So our view at the Digital Law Company is that children under 13 should not have smartphones. I think it's increasingly difficult in this day and age, and a lot of children under 13, children at 8 and 9 are getting smartphones, and you know, they're getting it purely out of social pressure, because all their friends have smartphones and all their friends are on TikTok and all their friends are on WhatsApp groups. But it really isn't necessary, and as I said before, once a child is online, you can't, no matter what parental controls you can put in, and there are a number, and we can talk about those, but you know, it's very, very hard to protect your child entirely. So we've got to just really ensure that our children are aware of the risks, but as you suggested earlier, it is a difficult balance. You don't want to teach your children about things that they don't know exist necessarily. You don't want to teach an 8-year-old about suicide when he or she has never heard about suicide before.
Yeah. It's a very difficult, I think, balancing act,
Absolutely.
especially with the growing world of the internet and wanting to be relevant as well. You know, the whole purpose of the internet is to make sure that the global community becomes very small, which then gives rise to certain issues around that. But talk to us a little bit about the safety elements of it. And is there a law that governs or covers any form of perpetrator trying to lure a child, or any form of cyberbullying? Are there repercussions that have been put in place for such things? Because this happens even amongst 12-year-olds. One can assume the alter ego and literally be the perpetrator, and the other one obviously becomes victimized.
Absolutely. So, you know, laws in place and enforcement of laws are two totally different things. And unfortunately, you know, we've seen too much that, you know, the majority of online bullying or grooming takes place through anonymous accounts or anonymous platforms, either people adopting pseudonym accounts or a fake WhatsApp name. This is a very, very common way of implementing, you know, cyberbullying or sending inappropriate content to people who may not want to receive it, to young people, grooming. So, and the biggest challenge we have is getting to the bottom of anonymity online. We think that anonymity is the root of all evil online, because people are able to say and do things, as you said, that they would never say to somebody's face. So having laws in place, yes, there are laws, there are mechanisms. Enforcing them is totally different. You know, we need to understand that all the big social media companies are headquartered in the US, and they have very, very strong privacy laws. So without having a court order, they won't give over the identity of an account holder, and that process is unfortunately very long, very time-consuming, and challenging. Yes.
I guess the one thing that parents can do is to ensure that when you're 13 and under, do not have a cell phone, just so that you can protect the child and let the child to be a child for as long as possible.
Absolutely. There are a lot of measures you can put in place. It's not, to say that the minute your child has a smartphone, he or she will be groomed, he or she will be cyberbullied.
Yeah.
But we've got to educate, we've got to have the conversations. If you haven't yet bought your child a smartphone, it's a perfect opportunity to, before that child even opens any social media account, have these conversations in an age-appropriate way. The conversation you have with a 13-year-old is obviously different, slightly different or slightly nuanced to the conversation with a 16 or 17-year-old.
Well, it's all about child protection. Sarah, thanks a lot for joining us this morning. We've got Sarah Hoffman who's joining us to discuss social media safety for kids as we wrap up Child Protection Week.